Jessica Alvarez adjusted the rearview mirror of her car, her fingers trembling slightly as she stared at the looming gates of the Alvarez family estate. The text from her mother had been simple yet suffocating. Family meeting. 7:03 p.m. Non-negotiable. Jessica let out a shaky breath. She hadn't stepped foot in this house for over 2 years. Not since the explosive argument that had left her estranged from her wealthy, status-obsessed family. The mansion stood tall and intimidating, its grandeur a sharp reminder of everything her family valued: appearances, power, and the kind of success measured in dollar signs and social prestige. Success that, in their eyes, Jessica had failed to achieve. She glanced at her phone again, the time flashing 6:58 p.m. If there was one thing the Alvarez family hated more than failure, it was tardiness. Jessica gritted her teeth. "Here we go," she muttered, pushing the car door open. The mansion's sprawling driveway gleamed under the soft glow of golden streetlights, flanked by perfectly trimmed hedges. Jessica's old sedan, functional but unremarkable, looked painfully out of place among the luxury SUVs and sports cars parked outside. She adjusted her coat, trying to brush off the sense of inferiority that threatened to creep in. The grand oak door opened before she could knock. Her mother, Mariana Alvarez, stood there, her expression sharp enough to cut glass. "Jessica," Mariana said. Her voice clipped. "You're late." Jessica glanced at her watch. 6:59 p.m. She bit back a retort. It wasn't worth it. Mariana's gaze flicked over Jessica, taking in her modest attire with a barely concealed sneer. "Everyone's waiting. Don't embarrass yourself." Jessica forced a tight smile, stepping into the marble-floored foyer. The familiar scent of expensive candles and fresh-cut flowers hit her, triggering a wave of memories, both bitter and bittersweet. As she entered the living room, the tension in the air was palpable. Her siblings were already seated, each exuding an aura of self-importance. Victor, the eldest, leaned back in his chair, dressed in a tailored suit that screamed corporate success. His confident smirk faltered only slightly when he saw Jessica. Elena, the golden child, sat primly on the leather sofa, her crisp white coat still on from her shift at the hospital. She glanced up briefly before returning her attention to her phone. Mariana, of course, perched on the edge of an antique chair, her posture immaculate, her eyes assessing. And then there was Jessica, the outsider, the black sheep, standing awkwardly in the center of the room like an uninvited guest. "Sit," Victor said, gesturing to the lone armchair positioned across from them, like a defendant in a courtroom. Jessica hesitated but complied, her spine stiff as she lowered herself into the seat. "What's this about?" she asked, her voice calm but laced with suspicion. Mariana cleared her throat, clasping her hands together as though preparing to deliver a verdict. "Jessica, we've gathered here to discuss family matters." Jessica arched an eyebrow. "Family matters? Since when do I count as family?" Elena let out a derisive laugh. "Oh, don't be dramatic. This isn't about you. It's about the family, which I'm apparently not part of." Jessica shot back. Victor leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "Jessica, let's cut to the chase. Your choices, the career path you've taken, have been a source of embarrassment for this family. People talk. Our reputation suffers. It's time we addressed it." Jessica blinked, stunned by his audacity. "Embarrassment? My career? Do you even know what I do?" Elena rolled her eyes. "You run some cara service, right? For old people? Hardly groundbreaking. It's called GoldenCare," Jessica said through gritted teeth. "We provide in-home care and support for seniors. We've helped thousands of families." Mariana's lips curled into a faint, disdainful smile. "Jessica, darling, it's not the business itself. It's what it represents. It's not prestigious. It reflects poorly on the Alvarez name." Jessica stared at them, incredulous. "You're ashamed because I run a business that helps people?" Victor handed her a folder, his expression unreadable. "We've made a decision. It's for the good of the family." Jessica opened the folder and froze. Her stomach dropped as she scanned the legal document inside. Words like formal dissolution of familial ties and relinquishment of inheritance rights jumped out at her. "You're disowning me?" she whispered. "It's not personal," Victor said. "It's business," Elena added with a shrug. Jessica's laugh was sharp and bitter. "Business? I'm your sister." Mariana's gaze hardened. "You've had every opportunity, Jessica. The best schools, the best connections, and yet you've chosen this hobby. It's time you understood the consequences of your choices." Jessica looked down at the document again. Years of subtle jabs, disappointed sighs, and backhanded compliments had prepared her for this moment. They had never understood her. They had never even tried. "Where do I sign?" she said, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. Her family exchanged glances, clearly caught off guard by her lack of resistance. "Jessica, let's not be hasty," Mariana began. "Where do I sign?" Victor pointed to the bottom of the page. "Initial here. Sign there." Jessica picked up the pen and scrawled her name without hesitation. When it was done, she stood, tossing the folder back onto the table. "You want to disown me? Fine, but don't expect me to come crawling back when you realize what you've thrown away." Mariana rose, her expression icy. "Jessica, don't do this." "No," Jessica interrupted, her voice firm. "You made your choice. Now you get to live with it." Jessica turned on her heel and walked out of the living room, through the grand foyer, and out the front door. The cool evening air hit her like a wave. But instead of sadness, she felt relief. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out to see a notification, another major client order for GoldenCare. The deal would push her revenue well into 7 figures. Jessica smiled to herself, sliding into her car. As she drove away from the mansion, leaving behind the family that had never truly seen her worth, one thought played in her mind. Success isn't about meeting their expectations. It's about surpassing your own. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Let us know in the comments. What would you do if you were in Jessica's position? Stay tuned for the next chapter of this incredible journey. Jessica gripped the steering wheel tightly as she drove away from the estate. Her mind racing, she replayed the scene in the living room over and over. Her family's judgmental faces burned into her memory. For years, she'd known that she was the odd one out, the black sheep of the Alvarez family. But tonight, they'd made it official. They didn't just push her out, they erased her. Still, their disdain wasn't new. Jessica had grown up in a household where success was measured by wealth, prestige, and how loudly the world applauded you. If you didn't fit into the Alvarez mold of perfection, you didn't belong. At the head of the family was Mariana Alvarez, the self-appointed matriarch. A picture-perfect socialite with an uncanny ability to turn any situation into a display of her own superiority. Mariana lived for appearances. She had married into wealth, then molded her children into reflections of the idealized Alvarez image, or so she thought. For Mariana, Jessica was a constant reminder of imperfection, a loose thread in the fabric of their family's legacy. Jessica's elder brother, Victor, was the golden boy, or at least he had been. As the CEO of a tech startup, he loved to flaunt his success. But what he didn't advertise was the fact that his company was hemorrhaging money. For Victor, life was a competition, and Jessica's mere presence was an affront to his fragile ego. Then there was Elena, the youngest and the family's pride and joy. A doctor at one of the city's most prestigious hospitals, she was the walking definition of success. Elena had always looked down on Jessica, dismissing her as a dreamer with no direction. For her, Jessica's career was not just a disappointment, it was an embarrassment. Jessica's father had been the one person in her corner growing up. But when he passed away, she lost the only ally she had. Since then, the Alvarez family had closed ranks, leaving Jessica to navigate the world alone. Jessica's path had been anything but traditional. After being pressured to abandon her dreams of attending art school, she spent her early 20s taking odd jobs just to make ends meet. One of those jobs, working as a caregiver for an elderly woman, had changed her life. She saw firsthand how many seniors were neglected, left without support or dignity. That experience inspired her to create GoldenCare, a company dedicated to providing compassionate in-home care for the elderly. Jessica poured everything she had into building her business. She worked tirelessly, often skipping meals and sleeping just a few hours a night. Her sacrifices paid off. Over the past 2 years, GoldenCare had grown exponentially, gaining recognition for its innovative approach to eldercare. Jessica had signed partnerships with medical organizations and even secured contracts with local governments. Yet, none of it mattered to her family. To them, her work was insignificant, a hobby that didn't fit their definition of success. For the Alvarez family, image was everything. Mariana hosted extravagant galas at the mansion, inviting the city's elite to admire her curated life. Victor and Elena thrived in this environment, using their achievements to climb higher in the social hierarchy. Jessica's focus on helping others, especially the vulnerable and marginalized, clashed with everything the family valued. This fundamental difference in values had always created friction. But now, as Jessica reflected on the night's events, she realized the disownment wasn't just about her career, it was about control. What Jessica didn't know yet was just how dire Victor's situation had become. His tech startup, once the darling of venture capitalists, was now teetering on the brink of collapse. A failed product launch had drained the company's reserves, and creditors were circling like vultures. Victor had been banking on his family's reputation to secure a bailout, but even that wasn't enough anymore. When Victor suggested disowning Jessica, he had ulterior motives. He believed removing her from the family would clean up their image and restore investor confidence. But his plan wasn't just about his business. It was about silencing Jessica, whose growing success as an independent entrepreneur was a threat to the Alvarez family's carefully curated facade. Elena's disdain for Jessica ran deeper than simple sibling rivalry. While she excelled in her medical career, she often felt the weight of the expectations placed on her. Jessica's independence and refusal to conform were a constant reminder of what Elena wished she could do: break free from the constraints of the Alvarez legacy. But instead of admitting this, Elena masked her envy with criticism, dismissing Jessica's accomplishments as trivial. Mariana had spent decades cultivating the Alvarez family's image, presenting them as the epitome of success and refinement. But Jessica, with her hands-on work and unapologetic authenticity, was a crack in the veneer. Mariana feared that Jessica's lowbrow business would tarnish the family name, especially among their high society peers. When Victor proposed disowning Jessica, Mariana saw it as a necessary sacrifice to preserve the family's legacy. What she didn't anticipate was the backlash brewing beneath Jessica's calm exterior. As Jessica drove away from the mansion, her phone buzzed with notifications, messages from clients, business partners, and even a journalist requesting an interview reminded her of the life she had built for herself, one that was meaningful and successful on her own terms. But then came another message, this one from a blocked number. You think you're better than us, but you'll never be one of them. Remember where you came from. Jessica. Jessica frowned, her heart sinking. She knew that voice. It was Victor's. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The Alvarez family wasn't just trying to erase Jessica. They were trying to reclaim control. But what they didn't realize was that Jessica wasn't the same woman who had once sought their approval. She was stronger now, fueled by the knowledge that her work mattered and her success was real. Still, the weight of the confrontation lingered. Jessica knew her family wouldn't stop at disownment. They would find a way to undermine her, to drag her down. But this time, she was ready for them. Jessica Alvarez couldn't shake the unease that had settled in her chest as she drove back to her modest apartment. The message from Victor echoed in her mind. You think you're better than us, but you'll never be one of them. It wasn't just the words, it was the venom behind them. It was a reminder that her family would never stop trying to control her. Even after disowning her, she parked her car, stared at the dimly lit street outside her window, and tried to breathe through the storm of emotions raging inside her. She knew the Alvarez family too well. Their obsession with appearances, their ruthless need to protect their image. It didn't add up. Something about tonight's meeting felt off, like it was just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Jessica wasn't the type to let questions linger. If her family was hiding something, she was going to find out. The next morning, Jessica sat at her desk in the small office of GoldenCare. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating walls covered with framed photos of smiling elderly clients and their caregivers. Normally, this space felt like a sanctuary, a testament to everything she had built, But today, Jessica's mind was elsewhere. She opened her laptop, her fingers hesitating above the keyboard before she typed, "Alvarez Family Business News." Dozens of search results popped up, most of them highlighting the Alvarez family's prestigious car dealership empire. For decades, the Alvarez dealerships had been synonymous with luxury and success. But as Jessica scrolled further, she began to notice a troubling trend. Rumors of financial struggles, reports of declining sales, and whispers of impending bankruptcy. Her heart pounded as she clicked on a recent article. Alvarez dealerships face financial crisis amidst market shift to electric vehicles. Jessica's eyes scanned the page. Victor's leadership had come under scrutiny for failing to adapt to the rise of electric cars. The family's once loyal investors were pulling out. Mariana had reportedly been seen at multiple fundraising events, attempting to court new backers. Jessica sat back, the pieces starting to click into place. The family meeting, the sudden urgency to disown her. It wasn't just about image. They were in trouble, deep trouble. As Jessica processed the news, her phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from an unknown number. "Check your email. You'll want to see this." Jessica's stomach tightened. She opened her inbox and found an email with no subject line, sent from an untraceable address. Attached was a scanned document labeled Alvarez Holdings, internal memo. The memo was damning. It outlined the family's desperate attempts to secure loans to keep the dealerships afloat. Victor had proposed using the Alvarez estate as collateral, a plan Mariana had vehemently opposed. Another section caught Jessica's eye. Potential leverage, GoldenCare. Leverage Jessica Alvarez's growing reputation to secure funding under Alvarez Holdings' name. Jessica's blood ran cold. They didn't just want to cut her off, they wanted to exploit her. They thought they could use her company, her success, to clean up their mess. Determined to get answers, Jessica decided to pay a visit to someone who might have insight. Isabel, a former Alvarez family employee who had worked as Mariana's personal assistant for over a decade. Isabel had left the family under mysterious circumstances a year ago, and Jessica had always suspected it wasn't on good terms. They met at a small cafe downtown. Isabel looked hesitant at first, but softened when Jessica explained the situation. "They're drowning." "Jessica," Isabel said finally, stirring her coffee. "Victor made a series of bad investments, and the dealerships are hemorrhaging money. Mariana is trying to keep up appearances, but they're running out of time. That's why they're so desperate." Jessica clenched her jaw. "And they think I can save them?" Isabel nodded. "Your name is everywhere right now, magazines, interviews, social media. Investors trust you. If they could attach GoldenCare to Alvarez Holdings, it might be enough to convince the banks to give them another chance. But they just disowned me," Jessica said, the bitterness clear in her voice. "Why would they think I'd help them after that?" Isabel's expression darkened. "Because that's how they operate. They push you away, make you feel worthless, and then pull you back in when it suits them. They'll twist the narrative to make you feel guilty, to make you think you owe them." Jessica stared at the table, her mind racing. She thought of Victor's smug smile, Mariana's thinly veiled disdain, Elena's mocking tone. They hadn't disowned her to cut ties. They'd done it to gain control. That night, as Jessica sat alone in her apartment, memories of her past resurfaced. She remembered the night her father had passed away, leaving Mariana to manage the family alone. Jessica had been just 12 years old, already struggling to meet her mother's impossibly high standards. "Do you think your little art projects will pay the bills?" Mariana had sneered one night when Jessica had shown her a painting she was proud of. "This family doesn't need dreamers. It needs winners." The words had cut deep, and they never stopped. Every accomplishment Jessica achieved was met with indifference or outright disdain. And now, after all these years, they still thought they could control her. But they were wrong. The next morning, Jessica stood in her office, staring at the framed photo of her first GoldenCare client. It reminded her of why she'd started this journey, to make a difference, to build something meaningful on her own terms. Her phone buzzed, a text from Victor. "Family dinner this Sunday, 7 p.m. We need to discuss important matters." Jessica stared at the message for a long moment, a slow smile spreading across her face. Fine, she muttered. Let's discuss. Jessica wasn't going to let her family's schemes derail her. She had worked too hard to let them manipulate her again. But if they thought she was just going to roll over and play their game, they were in for a surprise. This time, Jessica would set the rules. Jessica Alvarez entered GoldenCare's main office the morning after receiving Victor's text. Her mind razor-focused. The words family dinner Sunday, 7 p.m. still lingered in her head like a bad aftertaste. But she shoved them aside. Today wasn't about her family. It was about her mission, proving that GoldenCare wasn't just a business, but a revolution in eldercare. As she moved through the office, her staff greeted her with warm smiles. Here, she wasn't Jessica Alvarez, the black sheep. She was their leader, their visionary. She had built this business from the ground up, transforming what her family had dismissed as a hobby into a multi-million-dollar enterprise. Jessica sat at her desk, staring at the whiteboard that took up an entire wall. It was filled with notes, ideas, and plans for expansion, smart home integration, developing technology to help seniors live independently longer, community care hubs, opening small local centers to offer day services, activities, and health checkups, partnerships with hospitals, collaborating to ensure seamless transitions from hospital care to home recovery. The latest numbers from her finance team were staggering. Revenue had grown 250% in the last year, with client satisfaction rates at an industry-leading 97%. But Jessica wasn't satisfied. She wanted more, not for herself, but for the people who relied on GoldenCare. Her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. It was a call from Dr. Simmons, the director of a major hospital network she had been courting for months. Jessica, I've just reviewed your proposal for the hospital discharge program. Dr. Simmons said, this is exactly the kind of innovation we need. I'm recommending we move forward with the partnership. Jessica's heart leaped. This deal was a game changer. With Dr. Simmons on board, GoldenCare would become a national leader in eldercare transitions. Thank you, Dr. Simmons, Jessica replied, her voice steady despite the excitement bubbling beneath the surface. I won't let you down. She ended the call and immediately turned to her assistant. Maya, get the team ready. We're expanding faster than expected, and I need every department running at full capacity. As if the universe wanted to underline her success, another notification pinged on her phone, an article from a prominent health and wellness blog. The headline read, GoldenCare, the company that's redefining elderly care in America. Jessica skimmed through the piece, her smile growing wider with every paragraph. The writer praised her innovative approach, her commitment to sustainability in healthcare, and her personal story of overcoming familial rejection to build something extraordinary. The article quickly went viral, shared across social media platforms with hashtags like #GoldenCare Revolution and #ElderCare Matters. The company's website traffic spiked, and Jessica's inbox was flooded with inquiries from potential clients and investors. Boss, you're trending, Maya said, bursting into Jessica's office with her laptop in hand. Jessica chuckled. Let's make sure we're ready for the attention, scale up customer support, and make sure the website can handle the traffic. This is just the beginning. Amidst the whirlwind of success, Jessica couldn't shake the nagging feeling that her family was watching her every move. Victor's text about the family dinner hadn't been a request. It was a warning. She knew her sudden rise to prominence must have rattled them. Her suspicions were confirmed later that day when her marketing director, Ethan, walked into her office holding a stack of papers. Jessica, you need to see this, he said, dropping the papers onto her desk. Jessica flipped through them, her blood boiling as she realized what she was looking at. Doctored screenshots and fake reviews aimed at discrediting GoldenCare. Where did this come from? Jessica demanded. We traced it back to a PR firm, Ethan said hesitantly, one that Victor Alvarez has ties to. Jessica clenched her fists, anger surging through her. Her family wasn't just ignoring her success, they were actively trying to sabotage it. Instead of reacting emotionally, Jessica channeled her frustration into action. She called an emergency meeting with her executive team, laying out a plan to counter the attack. Transparency campaign. Jessica recorded a heartfelt video addressing the rumors, sharing her journey and the values that GoldenCare stood for. The video went viral, drawing overwhelming support from her followers. Client testimonials. GoldenCare published stories from real clients, highlighting the impact the company had on their lives. Legal action. Jessica's legal team filed a cease and desist order against the PR firm, warning that any further attacks would result in a lawsuit. Within days, the smear campaign backfired. The public rallied behind Jessica, turning her into a symbol of resilience and integrity. Even more clients flocked to GoldenCare, inspired by her refusal to back down. As Jessica's success reached new heights, so did the tension with her family. She knew the dinner on Sunday wasn't going to be an olive branch, it was going to be a battleground. Victor and Mariana weren't the type to admit defeat, but Jessica wasn't the same person they'd underestimated for years. This time, she whispered to herself as she reviewed the latest numbers from her business, they'll have to play by my rules. Late that night, as Jessica walked through her apartment, she paused by her desk. On it sat a framed photo of her very first GoldenCare client, a sweet woman named Margaret who had inspired her to start the company. Jessica picked up the photo, her eyes softening. "This is why I do it," she murmured. "Not for them. For people like you." Her phone buzzed again, another notification, this time from a major media outlet requesting an interview. Jessica smiled, her confidence unwavering. They could try to tear her down, but she'd already built an empire from the ground up. And this time, she wasn't going anywhere. Sunday evening arrived with an air of inevitability. Jessica Alvarez pulled up to the Alvarez family mansion, her heart a strange mixture of steel and unease. The imposing estate loomed as it always had, a testament to her family's obsession with wealth and appearances. But tonight, it felt different. Tonight, Jessica wasn't the black sheep groveling for approval. She was the one with power. Her phone buzzed just as she stepped out of her car. It was a message from Maya, her assistant. "Maya, Dr. Simmons confirmed the national rollout for the hospital program. Numbers are in your inbox. Crush it tonight." "Boss," Jessica smiled. GoldenCare was thriving despite her family's best attempts to sabotage it. She had built an empire, one client at a time, and now it was unshakable. Taking a deep breath, she walked toward the massive oak doors. They opened before she could knock, revealing her mother, Mariana, impeccably dressed as always but looking unusually tense. "Jessica," Mariana said, her voice softer than usual, almost hesitant. "I'm glad you came." Jessica arched an eyebrow. "I didn't think I had much of a choice." Mariana stepped aside, letting Jessica enter. "We need to talk." As a family, the dining room was just as Jessica remembered it. Cold, grandiose, and stifling. The long mahogany table was set for dinner, but no one was eating. Her brother Victor sat at the head, his usual smugness replaced with a strained expression. Elena was perched primly in her chair, her eyes darting nervously toward Jessica. Jessica took her time sitting down, savoring the tension. "So," she said, breaking the silence, "what's so urgent that you had to drag me back here?" Victor cleared his throat, trying to project authority. "Jessica, we've been discussing some opportunities for the family." Jessica leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "Opportunities? Interesting choice of words." Elena jumped in, her tone unnaturally chipper. "We were thinking about how we could work together. You know, as siblings." Jessica's eyes narrowed. "Work together? You mean after you disowned me and tried to destroy my business? Sounds more like desperation than teamwork." Mariana raised a hand, as if to restore order. "Jessica, please. We made mistakes. We've all suffered for it. But the past is the past. Let's focus on moving forward." Jessica laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. "Moving forward? You want to move forward with GoldenCare, don't you? That's what this is really about." Victor shifted uncomfortably but didn't deny it. "Jessica, the truth is, the family business is struggling. The dealerships are failing, and we're running out of options. We need your help." Jessica stared at them, her heart pounding as anger surged through her. They hadn't brought her here to reconcile or admit their mistakes. They wanted to use her, just as she suspected. "So, let me get this straight," she said, her voice calm but icy. "You cut me off. tried to destroy my reputation. And now that I'm successful, you want to ride on my coattails to save yourselves? Mariana looked genuinely pained, but Jessica wasn't buying it. Jessica, you're part of this family. We've all made sacrifices to protect our legacy. Sacrifices? Jessica snapped, her temper flaring. What sacrifices have you made? You turned your backs on me when I needed you most. You mocked my work, dismissed my dreams, and now you think you're entitled to what I've built? Victor slammed his hand on the table, his frustration bubbling over. Jessica, we're not asking for charity. This is business. Your company and our resources combined could create something incredible. Think about the legacy we could leave behind. Jessica met his gaze, unflinching. Legacy? That's rich coming from you. The only legacy you've left is debt and failure. Mariana stood, her composure slipping as she leaned over the table. Jessica, please, she said, her voice trembling. I know we've hurt you, but we're your family. Do you think your father would want you to let us fall apart like this? Jessica froze, the mention of her father hitting a nerve. She had always been closer to him than anyone else in the family. His death had left a void that Mariana had filled with cold judgment and impossible expectations. Mariana pressed on, sensing the shift. Your father believed in family above all else. He would have wanted us to stick together, to support each other. Don't let his memory be another casualty of this feud. Jessica's jaw tightened. Don't you dare bring Dad into this. He's the only one who ever believed in me. And if he were here, he'd be ashamed of what you've all become. Elena spoke up, her voice cracking. Jessica, we're sorry, okay? We were wrong about you. I was wrong. I thought I was better than you because I had a title and a career people respected. But the truth is, I've been living for other people's approval my whole life. You had the courage to do what I never could. Follow your own path. Victor sighed heavily. The fight leaving him. I was jealous. All right, you built something incredible, and I hated that it didn't fit into the perfect Alvarez image. But I see now that you don't need us. We need you. Jessica looked around the table, her family's vulnerability catching her off guard. For the first time, she saw them as more than her critics. They were human, flawed, broken, and desperate. She took a deep breath. Here's the thing, she said finally. I don't owe you anything. I built GoldenCare without your help, and I don't need you to succeed. But her voice softened, and her family leaned in, hopeful. If you're willing to change, really change, I might consider helping you. But it'll be on my terms, not yours. Victor frowned. What kind of terms? Jessica smirked. First, I run the show. No interference, no undermining. Second, you apologize publicly for everything you've done to discredit me. Third, we rebrand the dealerships under a new model, one that focuses on sustainability and serving the community. And finally, you start treating me like an equal, not an accessory. Mariana hesitated, but Elena nodded. Agreed. Victor looked like he wanted to argue but eventually sighed. Fine. Jessica stood, smoothing her coat. Good. Now if you'll excuse me, I have a business to run. Let me know when you're ready to put your words into action. As she walked toward the door, Mariana called after her. Jessica. Wait. Jessica paused, glancing over her shoulder. I'm proud of you, Mariana said, her voice barely above a whisper. Jessica's heart ached at the words she'd longed to hear her entire life, but she didn't respond. Instead, she nodded and walked out, leaving them to decide if they were truly ready to change. Jessica Alvarez sat in her office, staring at the folder on her desk. Inside were the documents that could officially merge GoldenCare with the failing Alvarez family dealerships. It was everything her family had begged for, an opportunity to save their legacy. But for Jessica, it was more than that. It was a crossroads, a moment to decide whether to tether her hard-earned success to the very people who had tried to tear her down. Her phone buzzed, breaking her focus. It was a text from Maya. Maya, hospital rollout is flawless. Also, Dr. Simmons called. He wants you to keynote the National Healthcare Conference. You're a rock star. Jessica smiled at the message but couldn't shake the weight of her decision. She leaned back in her chair, staring at the wall of framed photos, her first client, her team's achievements, the awards recognizing GoldenCare as a leader in eldercare innovation. All of it was hers. Hers alone. But then she thought of her father, his voice in her memory. Family is important, Jessica, but only if they value you for who you are, not who they want you to be. The meeting was set for that evening at the Alvarez mansion. Jessica wasn't surprised when Mariana called her earlier in the day to confirm her attendance. Everyone will be there, Mariana said, her voice uncharacteristically soft. This is a turning point for our family. Jessica. We need you. Jessica's tone remained neutral. We'll see. The dining room felt as cold and sterile as it had during the first family meeting. The long mahogany table was set with fine china and crystal glasses, but no one was eating. Victor sat at the head of the table, trying to mask his anxiety with false bravado. Elena appeared unusually subdued, her fingers nervously fidgeting with her napkin. Mariana, ever poised, sat with her hands clasped in front of her, watching Jessica intently. Jessica walked in slowly, her heels echoing on the marble floor. She placed the folder on the table in front of Victor, its presence heavy with unspoken implications. Is this it? Victor asked, his voice tense. Jessica didn't sit. Instead, she leaned forward, meeting his gaze. Before we go any further, let's get a few things straight. Jessica's voice was calm but firm as she addressed the room. You've spent your whole lives pretending to be better than everyone else. You dismissed me, mocked me, and tried to sabotage me. And now, you want me to save you? Mariana spoke first, her voice trembling. Jessica, we know we were wrong, but we're trying to make things right. Jessica raised an eyebrow. Are you? Or are you just trying to save yourselves? Elena stood abruptly, her voice breaking. We're trying, okay? I'm trying. You think I don't see how wrong I was? You think I don't regret every word I said to you? But what do you want us to do? Jessica? Beg? Victor remained silent, his jaw tight. Jessica turned her attention to him. What about you? Victor, are you willing to admit you were wrong? Victor's eyes darted to Mariana before he finally spoke. We made mistakes. I made mistakes. But this isn't just about us. It's about the family. Jessica. About saving what our father built. Jessica's heart twisted at the mention of her father, but she refused to let it weaken her resolve. Jessica opened the folder, spreading the documents across the table. This merger could save you, she said, her tone even, but it's going to be on my terms. Victor leaned forward, scanning the papers. CEO? He muttered, his face paling. That's right, Jessica said. I run everything. The dealerships, the finances, the branding, all of it. If I'm putting my name and GoldenCare on the line, I'm in charge. Mariana frowned. Jessica, surely there's room for compromise. There isn't. Jessica interrupted. You've spent your whole lives dictating to me. Now, I dictate to you. Take it or leave it. Victor's frustration finally broke. You think you're better than us, don't you? He snapped. Just because you got lucky with GoldenCare doesn't mean you can waltz in here and take over everything. Jessica's eyes flashed. Lucky? Do you have any idea what it took to build my company? The nights I didn't sleep? The sacrifices I made while you sat here, safe in your mansion? Don't you dare call it luck. Elena placed a hand on Victor's arm, silencing him. She's right, Elena said quietly. She's earned this. Mariana looked between her children, her carefully composed mask starting to crack. Jessica, she said softly, you're asking for everything. Jessica met her mother's gaze. No, I'm asking for accountability. If you want my help, you'll have to earn it. And that starts with admitting that I'm not the problem. You are. The room fell silent, the weight of Jessica's words hanging in the air. Mariana's hands trembled as she finally spoke. You're right, Mariana said, her voice barely above a whisper. I let my pride blind me. I wanted to protect the family's legacy, but in doing so, I nearly destroyed it. And you? Jessica blinked, taken aback by her mother's rare vulnerability. Elena nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. We were wrong, Jessica, about everything. Victor looked away, his jaw tight. "Fine," he muttered. "You win." Jessica gathered the papers and stood, her presence commanding the room. "This isn't about winning," she said. "This is about building something better, together. If you can't handle that, then this deal is off." Mariana rose from her seat, tears streaking her perfectly made-up face. "Jessica, thank you for giving us another chance." Jessica's expression softened. "Don't thank me yet. The hard work starts now." As Jessica left the dining room, the folder in her hand, she felt an unfamiliar sense of closure. For the first time, the Alvarez family had acknowledged her worth, not just as a businesswoman, but as a person. But this wasn't the end. If they wanted to rebuild their legacy, they would have to earn it, and Jessica was determined to make sure they did. Jessica Alvarez stood in the center of her sprawling new office, a glass-walled corner suite overlooking the city skyline. It was the headquarters of Phoenix Ventures, the newly rebranded Alvarez family business. The name wasn't her idea, but Victor's, a rare moment of humility acknowledging that they were rising from the ashes of their failures. Everything seemed to be falling into place. Jessica was now the CEO. Her family had finally begun to acknowledge her worth, and GoldenCare's integration into the dealership empire was already showing results. Sustainability initiatives were drawing in younger buyers. The electric vehicle showroom was outperforming projections, and the media had shifted their narrative to celebrate the Alvarez family's modernized legacy. But deep down, Jessica knew this wasn't the end of the story. Something about the ease of it all felt wrong. 2 months after the merger, Jessica received an invitation from her mother to attend a family dinner at the mansion. It was an unusual request, considering the Alvarez family rarely gathered unless business was involved. As she stepped into the dining room that evening, she immediately noticed the tension in the air. Victor avoided her gaze. Elena looked uncomfortable, and Mariana, though smiling, seemed unusually nervous. "What's this about?" Jessica asked, taking her seat at the table. Mariana clasped her hands together. "We wanted to celebrate the success of the merger. Things are going so well, and it's all thanks to you." Jessica arched an eyebrow. "You didn't invite me here just to compliment me. What's going on?" Victor cleared his throat. "Jessica, there's something we need to tell you." Elena shot Victor a warning look, but he ignored her and pushed forward. "When we approached you about saving the business, things were worse than we let on. The company wasn't just struggling, it was on the verge of bankruptcy." Jessica folded her arms, her expression unreadable. "I already knew that. I did my research." Victor hesitated. "There's more. To keep the company afloat before the merger, we took out a loan, a very large loan." Jessica's heart sank. "How large?" Mariana answered softly, her voice shaking. $50 million. Jessica's stomach churned. "And you didn't think to tell me this during the negotiations?" Victor shifted uncomfortably. "We didn't think it would matter once the business turned around." Jessica leaned forward, her voice cold. "And what happens if we don't meet the repayment terms?" Elena's face paled. "They'll take everything, the showrooms, the estate, the entire business." The room fell silent as Jessica processed their betrayal. They hadn't just withheld information, they had gambled her success, her reputation, and her company's future without her knowledge. "So that's what this is," Jessica said finally, her voice cutting through the tension. "You didn't bring me in to save the family legacy. You brought me in to be the safety net for your reckless decisions." Mariana reached for Jessica's hand, her eyes pleading, "We were desperate." "Jessica, we didn't know what else to do." Jessica pulled her hand away. "And you didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth? After everything we've been through?" Victor broke the silence, his tone defensive. "It's not as bad as it sounds. We've already secured new investors, and with the revenue from GoldenCare, we'll be fine." Jessica froze. "What do you mean? GoldenCare? What have you done?" Mariana glanced at Victor nervously before answering. "As part of the loan agreement, we used GoldenCare as collateral." Jessica's heart stopped. "You what?" Victor tried to justify it. "It made sense. Jessica, GoldenCare is the most profitable part of the business. The lenders wanted assurance." Jessica stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "You used my company, my life's work as collateral without my consent?" Elena's voice trembled. Jessica, we thought we could fix this before it became an issue. You didn't mean to get caught. Jessica snapped. Jessica paced the room, her mind racing. The family had proven, once again, that they couldn't be trusted. But this time, they hadn't just betrayed her, they'd jeopardized everything she'd built. Finally, she stopped and turned to face them. Here's what's going to happen, she said, her voice steady and commanding. First, I'm calling the lenders tomorrow and negotiating new terms. I'll ensure GoldenCare is removed from the agreement entirely. Second, I'm restructuring Phoenix Ventures again. Victor, you're stepping down. You'll remain on the board as a figurehead, but you're done making decisions. Victor started to protest, but Jessica silenced him with a glare. Elena, Jessica continued, you'll oversee the medical partnerships. You're good at it, and you've proven you can handle it, but stay out of everything else. Jessica's gaze shifted to Mariana. And you, Mother, you're done. No more meddling. No more backroom deals. If you can't respect my leadership, you're out entirely. Mariana's eyes filled with tears. Jessica, please, you've had enough chances, Jessica said firmly. This is the last one. If any of you go behind my back again, I'm walking away. And when I go, I'm taking GoldenCare with me. The next morning, Jessica spent hours on the phone with the lenders, renegotiating the terms of the loan. By the end of the day, she had successfully removed GoldenCare as collateral, ensuring its safety. She then called an emergency meeting with the Phoenix Ventures board, presenting her revised leadership structure. The changes were met with resistance at first, but Jessica's confidence and clear vision won them over. For the first time, Jessica truly felt in control, not just of her business, but of her life. A month later, Phoenix Ventures held the grand opening of its flagship electric vehicle showroom. Reporters swarmed the event, eager to document the rebirth of the Alvarez family business. Jessica stood on stage, delivering a speech about sustainability, innovation, and the importance of building a legacy rooted in integrity. As she spoke, she noticed her family in the audience, Victor clapping politely, Elena smiling genuinely, and Mariana wiping away tears. After the event, Mariana approached her. Jessica, she said quietly, I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I hope one day I can earn it. Jessica considered her mother's words, then nodded. Actions speak louder than words. Mom, let's see what you do next. Under Jessica's leadership, Phoenix Ventures flourished. The dealerships became a model of sustainable business practices, and GoldenCare continued to thrive as a standalone company. Jessica's name became synonymous with resilience and innovation, a testament to what could be achieved when you refuse to let the past define you. And while her family was far from perfect, they had finally begun to understand that Jessica's success wasn't just a reflection of her. It was their second chance to be better. Together, Jessica's journey shows that even the most broken relationships can be mended, but only if you're willing to fight for your worth. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Let us know in the comments, what would you do if your family betrayed you like this? Stay tuned for more inspiring stories.